Hi, Jose.
All right, welcome to video 4.6, solving by taking the square root of both sides. This will be our last video on quadratic equations. I know you're pretty sad about that, but we still have our project, so we can work on stuff there. So in this video, we're going to talk about the difference between, if you look at the four equations in your warm-up, okay, there's actually a difference between these two equations compared to these two. Right? These we can solve using the quadratic formula. These we can actually use the square root method. And what makes these special is they only have this one x here and here, where these have both an x squared and an x. Okay? So if you have problems like this, there's another method we can use to solve these, and it's called the square root method. Now, you have the steps in your notes, basically how to do them, but we're going to go through 4 examples, and we'll see how you do. So the first example is 1/2 x squared equals 32. And we want to solve this using a new method, square root method, which is actually a little bit easier. So let's see what it says. It says make sure, first step you want to do is you want to get what is being squared by itself. Okay, so if you look at these 4 here, if I underline, this is being squared, I got to get this by itself. In this case, see how x plus 5, the whole thing's being squared? I want to get this by itself. So that's what it means by get what's being squared by itself, whether it be just an x squared or an expression like x plus 5. So for number 1, I want to get this x squared by itself. So I'm going to underline it and think. Okay. So how can I get rid of this 1/2? What do you think?
You divide 1/2 in both sides.
Okay, you can divide both sides by 1/2, but dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. What's the reciprocal 1/2?
2/1.
2. So I can just multiply both sides by 2. Because 2 times 1/2 cancels out and just becomes 1. So I end up with x squared equals 64. All right, what does it say to do next? Oh, all right, next I want to get, let's see, I got the part that I'm squaring by itself. All right, now it says take the square root of both sides. Now the one thing you learned in your warm-up when I asked you to solve x squared equals 16, I hope you realize that 4 times 4 equals 16, but also negative 4 times negative 4 equals 16. So if I take the square root of both sides here, I need to make sure that I realize that I can either have a plus or minus, either positive 4 or negative 4 squared is going to give me 16. So when you look at this step, it says, take the square root of both sides. As you're writing that, make sure you put in plus or minus square root of 64. So that's what it means, because you can actually have 2 positives or 2 negatives. Okay? So these are inverses. So the square root of x squared is x, and now what you need to do is you need to just simplify and get the x by itself. So square root of 64, well, that is 8 times 8. If you want, you can make a longer tree. So plus or minus 8 is your answer. So you can see how this is a little bit easier than using the whole quadratic formula when you have these special cases. Right? And this would be an example of a 3.5 problem on your quiz. So everybody should get that 3.5, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you could probably take the quiz now and get the 3.5 after seeing this, can't you?
Possibly.
Possibly. I like the answer. All right, let's go on. We got 4 more examples. Okay, we'll get to some 4.25s and maybe even 5.0-ish type problems. All right, example 2. 9 minus 5x squared equals negative 51. Oh, now this looks like a 4.25. But let's follow our steps. Step 1. This is what we want to get by itself. So we're going to use our algebra skills and first get rid of the detached before you get rid of the attached. So you see this 9, that's a detached, so I'm going to get rid of that. So negative 5x squared equals negative 16. And now, the inverse of multiply by negative 5, let's divide by negative 5. So x squared equals 60 divided by 5 is 12. Very good. All right, next. Okay, I got what I'm squaring by itself. I need to take the square root of both sides. And what do I got to make sure when I do square root of both sides? You must also do what? What goes here? A plus or minus. Okay, so don't forget. But your plus, every time you take square root of both sides, you got to put in a plus or minus there, because you can be, because like we said, you can take 2 positives, multiply that, or 2 negatives there. All right, so square root of 12, we do need to simplify. 2 times 6, 2 times 3, for those that need a bigger picture, watch the video. 2 times 6, 2 times 3, I got a pair of 2s, out to the dance floor. 3, by itself, go to the punch bowl. So that's your answer. x equals 2 square root of 3. And don't forget the plus or minus. All right, almost done. This was example 2.
It's easy.
We're on to 3. Okay, 3, another probably 4.25 problem. Right, we gotta get the x squared by itself. So what makes this so more difficult is some people are like, oh, we can't use that method, but if you look, these are both x squareds. So I don't have an x squared and x, I have all x squared. So I can use the square root method. But what I want to do is I want to get all these x's on one side. So I'm going to add x squared by over here. So I get 4x squared minus 36 equals negative 12. Now, let's get this x squared by itself. All right. So get rid of the detached. So 4x squared equals 24, and then divide by 4. So x squared equals 6. Oh. All right.
So it's
Yeah, so I got what I'm squaring by itself. Now the next step is,
x squared to x is square root of
and what do I need to make sure to put here? I take square both sides.
plus or minus.
Plus or minus. Okay. 6. That's just 2 and 3. It can't be simplified. So you just write x equals plus or minus square root of 6. Ah, that's so bad. All right. So that's the square root method. All right, we're going to get to go ahead and do number 4 on your own. Check your answers, and then we'll do a, let's call it a 4, it's probably like a 4.6. It's definitely a tough, maybe 4.25, but it's definitely a tough one. So go ahead and try problem number 4 on your own real quick, and then we'll go over it. All right, so if you look at this problem, see how is it an x squared and an x in it? Okay. Once you see that, you can't use the square root method. It can only have the x is what you're squaring, so you can't use that method. But you could use quadratic formula. You have your a, you have your b, you have your c, but you cannot use square root method. Okay, so if you see solve this, do not use the square root method. Okay. All right. Now, doesn't hurt, I guess. You do an example. Opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. So that's how you would go about setting that up. Okay, once again, notice how you get your plus or minus in there. So if I was doing this on a calculator, this would be 2 plus or minus square root of, let's see, 4 minus, have a calculator?
No, sir, but that would be 4 minus, so that would be negative 48 times.
So positive 4 minus, let's see, 8. Let's do this first.
That's 48. That's negative 48.
This will be 8 and 24. So that's 32. 16, 17, 19. 192. Negative 192
Oh, yeah.
because you got a negative, so it ends up being 196.
That was a 3.
Okay, all over 4. 196 can be simplified. I think it's 14 times 14. Just doing that on top of my head. So 2 plus or minus 14 over 4. So 2 plus or minus, so 2 plus 14 over 4, and 2 minus 14 over 4. Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the quadratic formula, but as you can see, you'll end up with 16 over 4, which is 4, and then you end up with negative 12 over 4, which is a negative 3. All right, but that one, the main point is I want you to recognize you cannot use square root method. All right, let's look at the tough one now. So the tough one is when you have a situation like this, where you have an expression that's being squared. Okay, but you just follow the same steps. It just has one extra step in the end. So example 5. Right, so this right here is what I'm squaring. That is what I need to get by itself. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of detached. This is detached. Let's see, so that ends up being 121. 7, see this 3, it's attached. Now I'm going to get rid of that, so I'm inverse multiplying. So what I end up getting is x minus 2 squared equals 7. So now I've got what I'm squaring by itself, so I go to the next step. Oh, I take the square root of both sides. Okay, and I gotta make sure when I take the square root of both sides, I gotta remember to put my plus or minus in front of that 7. Okay, this marker doesn't work very well, so you may not see it. So what I end up getting is, when I take the square of this, it just becomes x minus 2 equals plus or minus square root 7. Now, you might not have understood that last step. It says finish getting x alone. See, right now I have this x minus 2 here. I need to get rid of that 2. So I'm going to add it to both sides. So x equals 2 plus or minus square root 7. Do not. 2 plus square root of 7 is not square root of 9. Okay, so I have the 2, and I have the plus or minus square root of 7. Leave them separate. Okay, this is your answer. So that's probably the toughest problem you'll see as far as 4.25 problems, is doing something like that. Okay. All right, you have your homework. You have an answer key on there. So go ahead and get started. And then once again, try to do some of the extension problems on the bottom and see how well you do. All right, good luck.